Joining me live in the studio now is Liberal Senator Sarah Henderson. You've been in Senate estimates today, focusing on climate and the energy transition. Today we've seen the energy market operator release a report, warning that Iran could have to stay open longer than 2027. Is there anything new in here? Obviously it's an updated advisory, but we've known for some time that those coal assets might need to, as the jargon describes it, have to sweat those assets for longer. That's the reality, isn't it?
Well, Kieran, I just wanted to start by trapped in transition turmoil. That's the front page of The Australian today. So what this tells us and what IEMO's report tells us and what we're hearing time and time again is that these policies are a disaster for our nation. They are simply not working. Labor's obsession with only renewables is driving the country backwards. We're seeing energy prices skyrocket, emissions are flatlining, and they're simply not working. And there's a recent report that's just been released by the Climate Change Authority. Even the Climate Change Authority is saying, based on the current trajectory, Labor will not reach its 2030 and 2035 climate targets. So this is a disaster, and that's why we have changed course as a coalition, no net zero, and focusing on getting emissions down, but very importantly, getting energy prices down.
And that's been the focus in part of your questioning today of officials, is that right?
Yes, we are. We are continuing to question officials and the minister. There's a lot of ducking and weaving. We are still trying to find out the costs of the travel costs of going to COP30, the climate change conference in Brazil last month. We are told that data will be announced after lunch. But it is there's a lot of ducking and weaving in the committee today. $6.8 million in travel costs was spent by the department in just 3 months, $1.2 million in business class airfares. So we are slowly getting to the bottom of what's going on. But look, lots of international travel, lots of conferences. We've got the part-time energy minister. Now he's the president of COP negotiations. As I've said, Kieran, I really think that it's time for this Prime Minister to perhaps suggest that Chris Bowen stays in Turkey, does that job, and he appoints someone else to do the job properly.
Is there a risk here for the coalition that by going as, taking the step that you have and obviously, saying that the transition is all flawed, that in 3-6 years' time the government has successfully landed further along this path and is able to get that stability, starting to see prices come down? That's what they believe they will achieve. If they do, does that just neutralise every component of this political attack?
Well, I think what we have seen, Kieran, as Australians can no longer trust this government. We knew, of course, that the promise was $275 reduction in electricity prices a year. Prices have now gone up on average by $1,300. Even when the Prime Minister spoke about prices coming down, he was laughing. They've been completely discredited on their plan. Now more and more information is happening every day. Businesses are closing, families are struggling. Elderly people are trying to work out whether, to choose between heating and eating. This is a disaster. We're turning our back on our resources, coal, gas, critical minerals to some degree, and of course uranium. We are blessed with these resources. We're turning our back on them as a country, and that of course is disastrous for our nation.
The other issue I want to ask you about, you crossed the floor last week on a bill relating to overseas students. Why did you do that and vote against your own party?
Well, I put up an amendment. I was hoping that the Liberal Party and the Coalition would support it. They didn't in this case.
Why is that?
Well, I'm not sure, because we took this policy to the last election. This was all about capping the number of international students, which are out of control in this country. We've seen a 42% increase in foreign students at universities principally since the election. Labor has completely failed to manage its migration chaos.
And you wanted to cap foreign students at what, 25%?
This was a very responsible, measured response, which was capping foreign students at universities at 25%, with some upside for universities which presented a housing sort of investment plan that the minister approved, and therefore under those circumstances the cap would increase to up to 30%, because we've got to take the responsible action. Migration is out of control under this government. This was responsible, it was measured. It also delivered this sort of proposal, very strong education outcomes. There are some courses...
Is the coalition, is the argument that they're still working on their immigration
look, there's
policy,
certainly...
so that's why they didn't...
I think so, yeah. And I think there was certainly a lot of support for this type of notion that we would cap foreign students at universities. Let's not forget, University of Sydney has 51% foreign students. They have totally lost their responsibility to manage this properly. The government has abandoned ship. It is a real mess, and I'm really hoping that we can come together to deliver these sorts of policies.